Okay, I'm sure you can see my screen. Let me know if you cannot see my screen. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm focusing on inventory management and strategies to stay profitably stocked. That is the key word. Looking at 2020 and 2021, we were all just really basically trying to cope with what we thought was a temporary situation. And now as it's extending into 2022, we're starting to realize that it's not a temporary situation. It's actually something that looks like it's going to be here for at least the next couple of years. And therefore, rather than doing anything and everything that we can to keep inventory in stock, meaning paying whatever we have to pay, we now have to start to look at the profitability side of things and really focus on not just staying in stock, but how to stay profitably in stock. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that may be costing you money. And we're going to be going into some strategies that actually aggregators are currently using. They'll get your business and then they'll do some optimization that will immediately add equity to that purchase. So my interest is in providing sellers with the ability to do those things themselves, say 12 months, 18 months before they sell, so that you end up keeping a lot more of that money. The business is more valuable, so that if you are ending up selling your business as one of your strategies, you can sell it for more money than maybe you would have if you hadn't applied these strategies. Some of these things are things that could save you tens of thousands, even depending on your business, over $100,000. Just little tiny tweaks that could do that. So we're going to be covering those things, and we're also going to be covering some of the basic strategies that you should have in place to make sure that your inventory management goes smoothly. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. A little bit about me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chelsea Cohen. I have been a seller, an Amazon seller since 2014. I have been immersed specifically in inventory management for over 3 years. I recognize it as a problem that I was facing in my own business. Since then, I've spoken to hundreds of 6, 7, and 8-figure Amazon sellers about their inventory management. I've written over 50 articles on inventory and supply chain. I've been on dozens of podcasts, and So Stocked, my software that I created back in 2019, has over 1,000 users and is recommended and used by top masterminds, influencers, agencies, and aggregators. So really my passion has always been, since I started So Stocked, to help you to keep more of your money by staying in stock and by cleaning up and systemizing the operations side of your business. All right, so first and foremost, I want to talk about numbers. Really, numbers is what inventory management is all about. So we need to understand how the numbers can help us or harm us, specifically with how we are actually processing them. So we like to talk about, numbers don't lie. Math doesn't lie. It's the only truth, except for when it does. So how is it possible to have your numbers lie to you? That's something that actually a lot of sellers are facing, and something that I like to dive into. All right, first and foremost, we like to use daily adjusted velocity. Velocity is extremely important when you're setting up your inventory management, because it is the basis for everything. If you get this number wrong, you can multiply your mistake across months of inventory. So if you have, your daily velocity incorrect and you order 3 months worth of inventory, that's going to perpetuate across those 3 months worth of inventory. So some of what people do is they look at total monthly sales. They look at, okay, for the past, 60 days, I've sold X number of units, so I'm going to order that many for the next 2 months worth of inventory. And it's more commonly also done during Christmas time. When you look at what are my Christmas sales last year, well, let's just do that and just increase it by 10%. The reason why that tends to sometimes be a problem is that you're not adjusting for specific anomalies. So the thing that you should be doing is, instead of taking total monthly sales, you should be taking averages, right? Finding out what the true average is. And then factoring out things that are not going to happen again. So things like sales spikes, right? If you were mentioned on a morning talk show during their gift segment, for example, and you had, a huge $40,000 sales day for one particular product, that would be something that wouldn't necessarily be happening the next time you place your order. You want to remove that and adjust your velocity to factor that out. Similarly, stockouts are the same thing. And so if you have, you're looking at 30 days worth of sales, but you had 5 days worth of stock out, then you want to adjust that so that you're actually looking at the 25 days that you had inventory in stock. All right, so this is daily adjusted velocity. You can basically think of it as true velocity, right? Daily adjusted velocity. And then, of course, once you have your daily adjusted velocity, growth trends can be added on that. Marketing campaigns can be added on top of that. But that is your base and that's your foundation. So if you get that wrong, you're setting yourself up for some problems. And we're going to go ahead and illustrate this point actually with a case study. This is a seller who was a 7-figure seller in the wholesale space and had been using another software for years, had found that software was less than accurate. And so for his best sellers, which were his most important component of his business and the biggest revenue drivers, he decided to create his own spreadsheet. And so he would use the software for most of his SKUs, and for his best sellers, he'd use his spreadsheet. And still with those two systems, he was continuing to run out of stock. So what happened was he started using SoStock, and he found that SoStock was predicting his velocity. He thought it was too high. And when we dug into the data, we actually found out that it was accurate. And we found out why those other systems using the same data were getting things wrong. And so here's what we found. We found that the first algorithm, the software, was saying he was selling 8 units a day. In fact, he was selling 15 units a day. That was his average. So when he placed his order for 8 units a day, he ended up stocking out by day 4. He was doing weekly orders. Then his spreadsheet was saying he was selling 10 units a day. And of course, he was stocking out on day 5. So in order to get himself through the full week, we actually found that he was selling 15 units a day, which was a far cry from the 8 units a day that the other software was suggesting. And now this is all using the same data, but it's looking at the data differently. So there are 2 things that you should be looking at when you're looking at a stock out. The first one is, did you have stock? Right? This is something that can be pulled from Amazon's historical API. We can see from Amazon's historical API if you had stock on a particular day or if you did not. And if you don't have an API, this is something that you should be able to track in something called a stock out log. Now, the second thing that you should be asking is, was there an unusual interruption to your normal sales velocity? So this could be anything from, the lower sales day that you have right before you stock out, the lower sales day before you come back, right after you come back in stock. And also Amazon finding, say, 1 or 2 units during a stock out, or even a sales interruption, such as a listing suspension. So these are all things that are not days where you're out of stock, but days where you have some sort of interruption to what your normal pattern is. So what was happening is normally these other systems are only looking at that first point. They're only looking at, did you have stock? And everything else is counted as an in-stock day. So the other software, for example, was looking at this. You sell an average of 100 units a day. Right before you stock out, you sell 23 units, and that's counted as an in-stock day. Then you stock out, then Amazon finds and sells 1 unit. That's counted as an in-stock day. And then you come back in stock and sell 13 units. That's again counted as an in-stock day. With what we do and with how to apply appropriately daily adjusted velocity, you need to look at those 3, the day of 23 sales, 1 sale, and 13 sales as a stock out day. So those get registered as stock out days, right, in the stock out calculation, and you get a very different picture. With the first algorithm, the daily adjusted velocity for 30-day average, the daily adjusted velocity is 90 units a day. However, the true velocity is 100 units because we're removing those additional days that are not factoring as full sales days, right? So that's a huge difference. That's a 10 unit a day difference. And if you're spreading that across, multiple months, that becomes a huge difference. You can start stocking out. And if that's applied across your entire catalog, that becomes even more of a problem. Now let's talk a little bit about what is the number one inventory mistake that sellers make. That actually is marketing inside of a vacuum. This is something that I see a lot of people. Like I've said, I've talked to hundreds of people, hundreds of sellers, and this happens all the time. It becomes more of a problem now that we have restock limit problems. Always was a problem in terms of losing ranking and losing sales and losing revenue, but it is now a problem because of restock limits, because we know that if you stock out, then your restock limits are going to plummet. So that's why it's extremely important to have a plan to avoid this. You need to get your marketing team and your inventory team on the same page. They need to be coordinated. You need to be marketing across your entire catalog. Used to be that we could market our best sellers, and then whatever happened to the slow sellers, eventually they would sell out. We didn't really worry too much about it unless we were coming into long-term storage fees. So here are some ways to get your marketing team and your inventory team to work together. First and foremost, marketing is supposed to give inventory a marketing plan. Here's the marketing plan. This is what we're doing. And inventory will vet that out before the marketing team goes and executes on it. Because what would happen if we marketed and all of a sudden we were stocking out? That's happened before. We had a client in my copywriting agency who was marketing. They ran a big sale on Mother's Day. And because of that sale, they ended up the next month stocking out. So it's really important. This is an 8-figure seller. Even 8-figure sellers make this mistake. So this is not just kind of a newbie thing. These systems need to go in place from kind of the beginning of your business, and they need to carry through into, 6, 7, and 8 figures. You need to have a system for this. So that's the first thing, is marketing plans get passed over to inventory. Inventory makes sure that there's enough inventory to support those plans. And that looks like something like this. We actually have this, and I'll send this out to you guys in an email after this when I send the replay. So we've got the inventory-minded marketing planner, and it's gonna, first and foremost, let the team know how the velocity should be calculated. Do we want to look at 30, 60, 90 days? Do we want to look at last year's sales? Do we want to override that and do a manual velocity? What are we using to establish our sales velocity? Then you look at trends. Is there a trend that you want to add? Additional sales growth. That's where you would plug in any plans for growth with, say, PPC, for example. Then you have lightning deals or other sales events, like that email campaign that I mentioned. You say, I'm sending out an email on Mother's Day and I expect to move 1,000 extra units. And then seasonal sales spikes. So let's say you launched a new product and it's a summer product and you don't have any historical data. You can estimate, let's say, that it'll increase by 50%. You would put that in there with the date range. Then we have a good deal of people using SoStock right now. So I'm going to show you some examples from SoStock that you guys can use. Some of these reports are in there. Some of them should be built. So I'm going to walk through how to build these reports out. Regardless, this is going to be helpful. If you're not using SoStock, you can see how these reports can be built out as well. So the inventory team has to take responsibility. They have to take a proactive role. Often the role inventory generally takes is, checking and making sure to place those orders. But there's actually more that needs to be done to send data to the marketing team. So the first one is the stock out risk report. Now, the stock out risk report, I'm going to explain how marketing needs to use these reports. Obviously, this is kind of a given. If the product is going to stock out, you shouldn't be marketing it. So if the marketing team has this list, while they're creating their plans, they can decide, okay, we're not going to market these SKUs because these SKUs are about to stock out, and maybe we can slow down the sales. Let's say it's only, going to stock out for a week, maybe slowing down the sales while watching to make sure that our ranking doesn't tank. we can maybe do that, and that will help things along. So that's how this report should be used. If you don't have so stocked, you can use the calculation looking at your total inventory, divide that by your daily adjusted velocity like we talked about, and that'll give you your days of stock remaining. So you can see how many days until you stock out. Then we've got the slow sellers report. The next reports are going to sound similar, but we're going to talk about the differences in how they're used by the marketing team. Slow sellers report, you would give this to the marketing team. And that slow sellers report, I call these the move it or lose it SKUs. These SKUs are within a range. We set that range at a minimum, between a minimum and a maximum. These aren't totally failure products, but they're in a zone where if we don't do anything, they could become failure products. So let's say your range is a minimum of 5 sales, a maximum under 20 sales. If you get over 20, you say that's a successful product for you. For example, this of course can change based on your particular business, but these are products that aren't performing to your standards. And so what this report will do is isolate these slow sellers, and this report should be used so that the marketing team knows to ramp up the sales on this or risk moving them into another category, which is a category that tends to get you into trouble with restock limits, keeps you from getting your best sellers moved in because these become blockers. They're using up too much space in Amazon. So these can become problems for you. And that next report that indicates that they can become problems, that would be your liquidation report. Your very, very slow sellers. Those are things that you want to get rid of. And so your liquidation report, these are products you don't plan to restock. You either want to sell through them or you want to remove them from FBA. And I don't advise pulling them from FBA if you can sell through them, because if you can sell through them, then they become valuable to you, even if they're not very valuable in terms of long-term products. And what I mean by that is you're going to want to have this report used to devise a plan to move this inventory out. The marketing team needs to look at this and say, okay, anything under 5 units a day, that's liquidation territory for my business. It doesn't mean you're going to necessarily use a liquidation company or use Amazon's liquidation service, but consider these as potential ways to buy more restock limits. These are things that you can use to boost your restock limits. So whether that's running a coupon discount, doing a lightning deal, selling through these products is a way to boost your restock limits. So only liquidate when you absolutely need to. Consider that inventory is an asset. On our books, they're considered assets. They can become liabilities if they end up costing us more than they make us. Storage fees and things like that, and blocking our best sellers, they become a liability. But while these products are a liability currently, you can move them back into being an asset if they can regain you restock limits. Then the last report is the overstock report. The overstock report, this is anything that, let's say, goes over a specific number of FBA days of supply. If you have 90 days worth of inventory, or let's say it's 60 days if you have a lower restock limit. And then you look at these and you say, okay, I have a ton of this inventory. Now I want to consider that these are tools that I can use to, clear space, avoid fees, boost restock limits, boost ranking. That's another thing. If you've got a product that, let's say a best seller is overstocked, and you want to use some of that excess inventory, like we said, considering inventory as a liability or an asset, excess inventory can become an asset because you can use it. You have more of it to spend by running additional discounts or running additional coupon sales or something like that to increase sell-through, to boost your restock limits, and to boost your rankings on that product. We do have a question. Okay, Herbert asks, is the Amazon liquidation considered as a sale/order on so stocked? Would it affect the velocity? That's a good question. In Amazon, it is not considered a sale, so it doesn't help restock limits. On so stocked, those are removal orders. And so what you would do is you would go into your orders and go under customer orders, and you can find those. and you can disable them so they are no longer counted toward velocity. So if you're going to do this, you want to go into your customer orders, and there's a specific feature to search for those. And then once you find them, there's a little drop down at the top to bulk apply and basically say disable these particular orders. Basically, they're removal orders. Disable those and they will be removed from your velocity. All right, so that's the reports. These are all reports that you can and should be using with your team. Helps your marketing team to be more proactive with their marketing. It's actually these reports that inventory gives them should help them to build out their marketing plans in a more thoughtful way, especially more thoughtful to the bottom line. Because if you are moving this, you are reducing your storage fees, you're reducing the amount of strain on your restock limits, et cetera. All right, let's go ahead and talk quickly about logistics flexibility. A lot of time when people say they've stocked out, I like to ask why they stocked out. And it's not too uncommon for people to stock out because they put everything on a truck and then Amazon didn't check that in. Or let's say they put everything on a boat and then the boat got stuck at port. So it is important to have a plan B and plan C. You basically need to be very, very flexible. We actually had someone on the last webinar about 2 weeks ago who said they implemented this plan and they haven't stocked out since. So this is something that could potentially be very, very valuable, especially with all the chaos that is continuing to happen across the supply chain. And the first and foremost is the golden rule, which is never let anyone have all your stuff. We were used to, prior to COVID, just sending everything straight to FBA. A lot of people didn't have 3PLs. A lot of people didn't have third-party fulfillment centers, and we got along just fine. Well, nowadays we have to send things a different way. And so this is something that we tend to do with our business and what we know a lot of other larger sellers do as well. And that is, instead of placing one smaller order, you increase the size of your order and you store some excess inventory with your supplier. So let's say you're ordering a container full. Instead of ordering a full container, what you would want to do is you would want to order a little bit more, let's say a full container plus a month or plus 2 months or something like that. Hold that excess inventory at your suppliers, and oftentimes they will allow you to hold it for free. So you're not paying for storage for those extra couple months of inventory. And then you have that inventory sitting there. You put your stuff on the ocean and hope that everything goes smoothly. And if everything does go smoothly, then you'll just ship that inventory with the next ocean shipment and you'll repeat the cycle. But if it doesn't go smoothly, you will have in your plans the drop dead date of when you need to ship that air shipment to avoid stocking out. You'll only incur the air shipping costs if you absolutely need to, but oftentimes it's better than stocking out. And so people want to have that excess inventory. And if you don't have that inventory sitting there, you don't have anything to ship over. Then of course you would send to FBA and or send to your 3PL. Similarly, you would apply the same idea with your 3PL and you would send most inventory to Amazon via less than truckload or full truckload, but that is sometimes you have a hard time getting your inventory checked in, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But if you send everything and Amazon just doesn't check it in for 5 or 6 weeks, you're kind of left with a problem. So if you save excess inventory at your 3PL, you can send inventory, emergency inventory, small parcel delivery, so that if your stuff doesn't get checked in by Amazon, you can get it in another way. So that's very important, adopting the same type of a system here for your local inventory as you do with your overseas inventory. And then of course, I recommend everybody have an FBM warehouse, because if Amazon can't get your inventory checked in, you have to have a way to get your orders to your customer, right? Even if Amazon's your only sales channel, it should not be your only distribution channel. We have seen that you can't necessarily rely on Amazon very, very much most recently. So we need to have that as a backup plan. All right, now that kind of segues into talking about trailers and talking about check-in times. And I know that a lot of people wonder why it takes so long for inventory to check in. If you've ever wondered that, we're going to talk about that, specifically why. So Amazon created something called Amazon Freight, and we all know and are familiar with Amazon partner carriers. Now, what that has done, it created a really good system until it started breaking down, especially when they started having trouble with their warehouse, employment, and really kind of losing a lot of they had a lot of high turnover with their employees in the warehouse. So Amazon Freight, and Amazon has these trucking contracts. They basically own a lot of these trailers, and they say, because we own these trailers, you're going to fill it up, you're going to drive it to a warehouse, drop it in the lot, and pick up an empty one and drive away. Well, eventually there were no more empty ones, and those trailers were not being unloaded fast enough. So when your stuff gets delivered and it just sits there, it's probably because it's fallen prey to this specific problem, is that they're not emptying those trailers fast enough. So something that you want to start doing, there's actually a solution, and that solution is talking to your 3PLs and your freight forwarding reps and finding out how you can get what's called a live unload. It's something that Amazon, they specifically have these contracts and these agreements to have people drop their stuff and not do live unloads. A live unload means that when the truck arrives, it pulls up to the dock, it unloads, and it drives away with an empty truck, an empty trailer. Now, that is ideal, and that's what used to happen a lot more often. And since it doesn't happen that way anymore with a lot of these Amazon partner carriers, Amazon freight companies, if you're having problems getting your stuff checked in, it makes sense to start talking to your 3PLs and your freight forwarders and asking them, which companies can I use to get a live unload? And they're going to be the people who know the best. This could all change in, let's say, a couple of months. Maybe Amazon gets their stuff together and all of a sudden everything's checking in on time and it's a lot faster. That could happen, but they're the best people to know, because Amazon partner carriers, they are cheaper, they're more affordable, but if your stuff isn't getting checked in and you end up stocking out, the amount of money that you lose on that is often much more than the money that you're going to be spending on a more expensive carrier. So talk to your 3PLs, your freight forwarders. They really are your best allies, and stop treating them as order takers. A lot of people tend to make their shipments on Amazon and then send them to them and say, here, just send it this way. And they use Amazon partner carriers. So consider no longer using Amazon partner carriers as your default. It may be a good solution for you, but it may not. Start looking at seeking out alternatives by talking to these representatives. Even though Amazon partner carriers, they may get a better delivery time. If the stuff isn't being checked in, then it doesn't really matter if their delivery time is before or after your inventory. If you've got a live unload, your delivery date is generally your check-in date or very close to it. One thing to note, if you're not going with an Amazon partner carrier, Amazon will not cover the insurance on that. So make sure that your insurance covers any losses, anything that happens en route to Amazon. Then lastly, you'll want to log your trailer numbers. This is something that can be very helpful. Amazon can't necessarily tell you exactly where your package is. They can't look at the trailers in the lot and see that your order or your shipment is in a specific trailer. But if you log your trailer numbers, they can locate the trailer. So this becomes important to do. Oftentimes your shipment is simply buried in their yard, their lot somewhere, but not necessarily. We had a friend of mine who runs a 3PL, and they logged their trailer numbers, and one of the things they found was that there was a trailer that was supposed to be in Nevada. It ended up in California. No one did anything with it because it wasn't supposed to be there. So they kind of just threw up their hands and said, oh, well, this is a problem. No one really handled it. I guess they don't have the best protocol for something like that. So we picked up the phone, found out what happened, and then got an authorization to push it through to get it checked in California and then distributed. So logging trailer numbers can be extremely valuable. If your stuff is very valuable, you could even talk to your 3PL about putting a GPS tracking device. Apparently they're not very expensive. So that's something that could be done as well, if that's something that you are interested in doing. Now to the profitability. This is the part that I get really excited about. So all of this stuff is going to help to streamline, to make sure that your sales are moving, that you're not stocking out. All of that's going to contribute to helping you to be more profitable at the end of the day. But I want to talk about how to be more profitable every single order, right? And that is in every single shipment, all of that. So that is a concept. It's a concept I like to refer to as little hinges move big doors. And the first time I started thinking about stock and started thinking about doing something about, I call it death by paper cuts, right? Death by paper cuts, all of the little tiny things that were eating away at my profitability. One of the major ones was stock outs. That was a huge one. And so that's why I got into inventory. But the goal has always been to help to improve profitability for my own business as well as for others. So let's talk about that. I want to start having you think about the way that you're packing things. If we can't change the pricing on shipping, we can't control that it's $10,000 for a single container. We can't control that the prices in our 3PLs keep rising. We can't control any of that stuff. But what we can control is how we can optimize things to make sure that we're getting the most out of every single payment that we're making. This came to my attention when I was working with a specific shipment and was told that all of a sudden there was a minimum. The minimum was 12 kilograms. Every carton was going to be charged at a minimum of 12 kilograms, even if it was less. And I was looking at cartons that were 7.7 kilograms. So I was going to be paying more. I was going to be paying as if I was shipping 12 kilograms. And this is on an air shipment. What I was looking at was that, let's say, there were essentially an excess of fees of $6,000 for the order, $6,000 in additional fees just for having them set a minimum all of a sudden. That equates into $75,000 a year. It's a lot of money. So obviously there had to be a pivot. There has to be a change so that when I am paying 12 kilograms, I'm actually shipping 12 kilograms. So obviously it became imperative to increase the units per carton. Now, we're able to save money on the weight fees, but when you do that, you're also able to save money on the carton fees. So instead of shipping 417 cartons, when we went from 24 units per carton to 40 units per carton, we lowered that from 417 to 250 cartons. If I'm being charged $3.60 for every carton that my 3PL processes, because they touch it, they pull it, they remove it, they handle it, they stick a label on it, and they charge me a bunch of money. The fewer cartons that I have, the less I'm going to pay. So we were able to cut down from 15 cents a unit to 9 cents a unit for the handling of those products. $600 a month or over $7,000 a year. If you're able to increase the units per carton, if you have to pay per carton fees, you want as many units as possible to be within those cartons. If you're going to do this, I do recommend that you do it with the guidance of your suppliers and also potentially an inspection company, and maybe even your freight forwarder or your 3PL can be involved. 7-layer cardboard is what you probably want. And that's because you're going to have more product in there. It's going to have more shifting ability. So you'll want to make sure that you have a sturdy base, because the first shipment that we ever sent, we had 100 units in a carton. And out of 1,000, an order of 1,000 units, 52 of them were damaged. So we had to scale down the units per carton, and we had to control that a little bit better. All right, so with this particular scenario, we're able to save on weight fees and carton fees, total of almost $7,000 per month or $82,000 per year. This stuff can be extremely powerful at recovering profit within your business. Just things like this. But that isn't all. There's actually, we have for this very purpose, we have a carton calculator that's coming extremely soon. You guys are on our mailing list. We should be releasing it, I believe next week is when we're releasing it. And what it's going to do is it's going to help you to find the maximum potential for your cartons. It's going to help you to figure out what is that master carton supposed to look like to reduce fees as much as possible, and then also how do we configure that on your pallets to reduce the number of pallets? Because if you reduce the number of cartons and you reduce the number of pallets, you significantly reduce your cost. Currently, while you're waiting for that to come out, onpallet.com is a system that you can use. It's a free tool, and it helps to configure your pallets based on what you're currently doing. How do you need to be building out those pallets to get as many cartons on there as possible? Then we have containers. So container optimization, there's a tool, it's a free tool again, peertopeer.com/loadcalc, and that will help you to build out the container to fit as many units per container. Because if we have to spend $10,000 per container, it's a good idea to make sure that we have as many units as possible so that that cost is dispersed over as many units as possible to reduce the per unit cost. Now to go over, let's talk about, a lot of people are talking about exit now. We want to recover profit so that we continue to scale or put more money back in our pockets. But then what happens when we exit? And a little side note, this is all stuff that aggregators are currently doing. I've actually had a conversation with an aggregator who specifically I was training on this, and he started talking to me about how that's something that they're currently doing and that they do when they get a new company, when they take on a new brand, they're doing that. So it's a better idea before you exit to do all of this a year before you exit so that you can realize all of those savings and they can become an increase in your exit money. So let's say carton optimization, $82,000, that turns into over $400,000 upon exit at a 5x multiple. Pallet optimization, let's say 15 grand, turns into 75. Avoiding air freight by doing some smart, flexible logistics, $250,000. Avoiding stockouts, let's say 40,000 would turn into 200,000. That would save you close to $190,000 per year. And on exit would be almost $1 million in increase in your exit. That's a lot of money. I don't think people can afford to lose that money. This is definitely something that you should be taking the time in your business to start doing. All right, we're going to jump into, we'll open up for Q&A in a second, but the next thing that I want to talk about, and this is the last little thing that addresses profitability, is the bombshell that was released in late January. And that, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's because Amazon kind of snuck it in there. They tried not to have people really understand what it was. But when people started seeing their fees go up considerably, it's really hard to miss. And that's the dimensional weight calculation. Let me know if you are not familiar with what happened with the dimensional weight calculation. Just type something into the chat. So we're going to talk about it. Dimensional weight explained. All right, so the dimensional weight is the amount of space that a package takes up in relation to its actual weight. So it's a way for carriers to charge based on the amount of weight and space your product takes up. Because when products are being shipped on a truck, the truck has a space limit, obviously, but they also have a weight limit. So this type of calculation helps them to make sure that they're getting a fair amount of money for what they're doing, for the shipping they're taking. Because if you have a bunch of lightweight but bulky products, that will fill something up pretty quickly. If you have heavy products, those can max out a truck's weight without it even being full. So this calculation helps them to assess that. And Amazon used to not use this calculation. They switched to this calculation, and it makes a considerable difference. The dimensional weight calculation is fairly easy. You take your unit length, unit width, and unit height, and you divide that by 139. Now, this is your actual units. It's not your cartons. It's what Amazon's actually shipping out to the customer. Unit length, unit width, and unit height. And it's good to look at what Amazon thinks that is, because sometimes those things can be changed, remeasure, and you can be being charged fees based on a bad measure. So it's important to look at your listing and see what they have there and what they're actually using. So let's talk about some real world examples. I want to take an example of pillows. They're bulky, but they are lightweight. Here's an example of a 2-pack of queen pillows. This is an actual example that I pulled off of Amazon, and they're selling for about $27. They're considered small oversize based on their figures. If we look at the new dimensional weight, they go from 4 pounds. 4 pounds, actually 4.13 pounds will round up to 5. Amazon's always rounding up for pounds, or below 1 pound, they're rounding up ounces. So it goes from 5 pounds to 22 pounds. And that's what you're being charged now if you have a product like this. So fulfillment fees last year for this product were $9.26. Without dimensional weight, the fees would have gone up to $9.70, which is a 4.7% increase in fees from last year to this year. But with dimensional fees, the price is over $16 per unit, which is a 74.5% increase in fees. That's paying 60% of the sale price, the retail cost, is going to fulfillment fees. Then you tack on the referral fees, and you're paying 75% to Amazon before your cost of goods, before your PPC costs, and that all of a sudden your product is unprofitable. This is some stuff that is happening to people. They're having to adjust things. They're having to raise their prices. And I would imagine some products are not going to be sold on Amazon any longer. So the question is what to do about this. This was a 2-pack of queen pillows. Similarly, we've got a 4-pack of queen pillows. The size difference is very considerable. It's large standard. It's much, much smaller. It weighs more, but it's smaller. So it's 11 pounds when you round up, which when you look at the dimensional weight, it actually only goes up to rounding up 12 pounds. So it's only an additional pound. It is affected by dimensional weight, but it is only an additional pound. And I just want to emphasize, I did not mention that Amazon will either use dimensional weight or your unit weight. So if your dimensional weight is less than your unit weight, let's say this equated to 9 pounds, they'd still go with the 10.28. So they're going to go with whatever is higher. So fulfillment fees last year, $808, would have been $853, which was a 5.5 increase. And with dimensional weight, it's $883. So it's only about 9.3. And that's because these pillows are packed. They must probably be vacuum packed, folded up, rolled, something like that. It makes a lot more sense to do that with your products. This is only 22%. The fulfillment fees are only 22% of the price of the retail price. That's only 37% that goes to Amazon before all of the rest of the stuff. So my best suggestion, buy your product or get your product, one of your products shipped to you, take it out of the packaging, start measuring it, start folding it. Maybe you have a silicone product or you have a pillow or something like that. Is there a way to get it into a tighter, smaller, more compact space? First and foremost, you should run your dimensional weight. You should look at what your fees are, but getting your product into a reduced size is going to be valuable any way you slice it. It's going to be valuable for your fulfillment fees, but it's also going to start compounding, because once you get those shrunk down, You can fit more units per carton. You can fit more units per pallet. You can fit more units per container. So it starts to exponentially increase. I think everything starts with assessing whether you can reduce the size of your packaging and reduce the size of how your product is shipping out, and then start redesigning all of your packaging, all of your shipping across the boards. And you'll see that you'll have a significant improvement in your sales, in your profit. All right, I want to open up to questions. Then we're going to talk about a couple of other solutions that we have. If there's any questions, you can type them in the chat, type them in the Q&A section as well. And you can type them as we go along. I don't see any right now that we haven't answered, but let's go ahead, and I want to talk a little bit about SoStock. I know a lot of you guys are using SoStock now, but I'll talk a little bit for those guys who are maybe on the fence, or maybe you haven't really heard much about SoStock. We are the first fully customizable Amazon inventory management software, and we say we're built by sellers, for sellers, by sellers, which is really cheesy, but what we actually mean, we don't really mean that we're built by ourselves as sellers. More so, we're built by hundreds of sellers that have had input into the software. We take the seller feedback very, very seriously. I actually have worked directly with sellers. I did the onboardings for every single seller that came on board for the first year and a half. And we have a very tight customer service that speaks every single day to our development team. We also factor restock limits into your forecast. We have over 1,000 happy customers. We do free data migration. So if you're using another platform and you're not really happy with it, we can help to move that data. Our team can help you to upload that data, to get that data put into the software. So if you don't have a lot of time, we can help with that, and that's free. And then we do one-on-one onboarding. So you'll have a call with our onboarding specialist who will help you to use the software, get it set up properly, and to ensure that your systems are working for your particular business model. We have customizable forecasts per SKU, and that includes restock limits. It includes dialing in that daily adjusted velocity that we talked about, and factoring out sales spikes, stock outs, making sure that you have additional sales growth, and then inventory timelines. You can plan everything out. Your marketing plans go into this. You can see when things change, when things are coming in. You can see on a daily basis what is going to happen to your inventory. And we have our order and transfer tracker. With a few clicks of a button, you can create orders and transfers, and then you can see them tracked along based on your lead times, when things should arrive, when things should be finishing up production, how much is in each order, and other specific details on every single order. Customizable inventory dashboards. All of the stuff that we talked about in terms of the inventory reports that need to go to the marketing team, all of those can be created in inventory dashboards. Everything is customizable. We have a lot of very smart and intuitive inventory dashboards already built out, and then you can customize and change it as needed to see all of the data that you need to see to understand your inventory. PO and transfer creation. You can create your own POs, you can create your own transfers with a couple of clicks of a button, and then send those directly to your suppliers or your third-party warehouses straight away from the software. We're on the Amazon App Store. You can check us out on the App Store. We have a lot of 5-star reviews on there. Forecasting is hands down the most accurate. As one review, someone else said, SoStock solved 99% of our forecasting challenges. Getting rid of spreadsheets forever. That's one of our missions, is to rid the world of inventory on spreadsheets. I'm making much more money because avoiding stockouts, obviously you're going to make more money. And then cutting down from hours to a few minutes. Listening to our needs. That's something that we pride ourselves on. Like I said, I am extremely happy to be championing this cause in terms of inventory management. If you have any questions, reach out, let me know. We do have a 30-day free trial. If you go to sostock.com, you can go to the floater bar at the website footer, and that will lead you to your free trial. If you have any questions, let me know, reach out. And stay tuned on your inbox. We will be sending out the the brand new tool that we have created, the calculator. So keep an eye out for that, because we've worked very, very hard on it. It's a lot of coding. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of math, but it's very, very easy for you. So we are excited about that. Check it out. And then if you do implement some of these strategies and you have some really brilliant profit recovery, reach out to me. Let me know what happened. You can get me at sostock.com/connect, and then you'll find all of my socials, email, all of that. So thank you guys so much. Looking forward to seeing you if you're at Prosper. I'm going to be speaking at Prosper. So if any of you are going to be at the Prosper show, definitely find me, come up and say hi. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys. Oh, thank you. Awesome. Nice to meet you guys. Hope to see you in person one day. All right. Bye, guys.